สวัสดีครับทุกท่านครับขอต้อนรับเข้าสู่รายการ Trader KP Talk นะครับวันนี้เรามาเช้าพิเศษเลยนะครับเพราะว่าเรามีแขกจากต่างชาตินะครับวันนี้ผมได้รับเกียรติอย่างยิ่งนะครับที่จะได้คุยกับคุณ Alexandra Merz นะครับเขาเป็นนักลงทุน Tesla Investor นะครับที่ลงทุนในหุ้น Tesla เนี่ยเกือบจะ 95% เลยนะครับตัวเดียวนะครับหลังจากที่อยู่ในวงการลงทุนมา30 ปีวันนี้เราจะมาเจาะความคิดของคุณ Alexandra นะครับว่าทำไมหลังจากลงทุนมาถึงนานกว่า3 ปีเนี่ยวันนี้ถึงตัดสินใจที่จะมาลงทุนในหุ้น Tesla นะครับถึง 95% รับรองว่าเป็นเอพิโซดที่คุ้มค่าอย่างแน่นอนครับ Alright, everyone, good morning. It's very early. It's a special show today on Trader KP channel because it's an honor for us to get to talk to Alexandra Merz. So without further ado, let me invite her up to the stage. Good morning, Alexandra.
Morning, Chris.
Hi. Yeah, สวัสดีครับ
Sawadee-ka.
So it's morning for our time, but it's an afternoon in California for Alexandra. So thank you so much for doing this for your Thai fans, Alexandra.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And it's an honor as well to be speaking with you. So first of all, I would like you to give a bit of background of yourself to
Sure.
your Thai fans, please, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem at all. So I am German, married to a Frenchman. We have 5 children who are now between 32 and 19. And I live in California, in Santa Barbara. My career started at Deutsche Bank in Paris. I was a fund manager there. Then I moved to Commerzbank to be a fund manager as well. I managed the biggest European mutual funds in the 90s. These funds were rated by Moody's. So Moody's was in contact with us. Thank you, Milo, for staying up. These funds were rated by Moody's. So Moody's got to know me and they seemed quite impressed. And so they hired me. So I worked for Moody's from 1997 to 2003 as an investment analyst in charge of mutual funds and real estate funds in Europe. I actually developed the methodology for rating European open-ended real estate funds. So I did that until 2003. Then I left Moody's and did that with my own rating agency. I set one up from 2003 to 2007, sold my shares in 2007, and left the financial markets then. From there on, I had a real estate agency in the south of France where we lived. And then in 2014, we moved to California. And I moved here on what's called an investment visa. For those who know a little bit US immigration, it's called an E2, based on my consulting firm. And I realized how difficult it is for entrepreneurs to immigrate to the United States. So I said I specialized in that. I help entrepreneurs worldwide come here and either obtain non-immigrant visas or the green card. I've been doing this now for 10 years. Love doing it, very successful. And have left the financial markets, but came back for Tesla. That was that in 2020, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that.
Okay, so you left financial market in 2007, you mentioned. That's
Yes,
before you
correct.
moved to California.
Yes.
Before we get into Tesla, just wondering, when you said left, you meant like your work, right? But not
Yes,
the
exactly.
portfolio
Professionally.
investing.
I
Okay,
left professionally. Yeah. I mean, I also didn't invest much during the financial crisis. It was actually funny because I had the money to do so. I mean, obviously with 5 children, you never have too much money, right? Because they were going to private schools and universities. So that was always a need for budget. But I could have invested then and I did not. I went back investing a little bit in a very boilerplate, diversified manner. The thing is, when you had a training as a fund manager, you are obviously very much influenced by diversification, right? Diversification. And so that was all my retirement savings and whatever. There was no passion about it. For example, I completely did not invest in Amazon and Apple because I wasn't convinced about these companies. I would have been much richer now than I am, but diversification was so much more important for me then. But what happened with Tesla was completely against all nature, because in 2020, I went all in Tesla, everything. I have a little bit of 2 other small positions, but tiny, not even 5%. But the 95% are in Tesla, and any new investment that comes up, any new money that comes up to be invested, always goes into Tesla.
Thank you, Alexandra. I think that'll be the main topic we want to talk about today because someone like yourself who's been in investing world for a long, long time, 30 years, as you mentioned, and you're very used to diversification. We understand that there's no passion there, as you mentioned, in diversification investing. But how did you come, to a stock like you see a Tesla and then you decided to go against
Crazy, right?
the rules or anything in the investing books or everyone has been taught to do so. So I wonder how you get to that point, to that stage.
Exactly. I mean, it is completely crazy, and I mean, going further, right? Because since then, my Twitter handle is Tesla Boomer Mama. I mean, can it get more ridiculous, right? And I mean, how does a 56-year-old mom of 5 children who has her money, who has her job and works all day, get so crazy about something? So let me explain to you. When we were still in France, we tried to purchase an electric vehicle then. The Renault had a Zoe, and it was long wait times, and the Renault dealers had no interest whatsoever of making it easy to purchase a Zoe. So we didn't get one, and we knew we were moving, so we gave up on that. When we arrived in California, the first thing my husband did was purchase an electric car. So that's 2014, and that was a BMW. That was a BMW i3, these little cars, compliance cars, we call them in California, because these European car makers build cars so that in California they have the right to sell all the other cars as well, because they also had an electric vehicle in their offer. So we had that cute little car, little range. I think it was about 50 miles range. I mean, ridiculously small, but really a nice city car and a change. And we had obviously a Mercedes, and we had cars for the children. So we had enough ICE cars, but we had this little BMW i3, and everybody loved it. So after 3 years, we sold that, and we needed another one, and we were on the wait list for Tesla already then, but Tesla was in production hell. So our reservation number was too far to be coinciding with the sale of our at the end of the lease of our i3. And so what we did is we took a Bolt. And the Bolt was actually an upgrade from the BMW, because it was a bigger car. It had a range of about 200 miles. So it wasn't as cute anymore. It was more of a boilerplate car, but in terms of utility, it was certainly better. So we were used to 6 years of electric cars in 2020. So that we were already EV adopters. It was not about Tesla yet, but it was all about it. We knew we wanted EVs. Our Mercedes had at that moment, I think, 6 years, and we was thinking of selling. That was a huge M-class Mercedes. And so there were a couple of things coinciding. Then in the Bolt was up for end of lease in May. It was just the beginning of COVID. And so in March, I said, you know what, let's go and check out Tesla. So my husband went there and said, we want to do a test drive. Picked me up. We went there, and that was it. That test drive was everything, because, it sounds crazy, but when you are used to EVs and you see the difference of a Tesla, I think it's even more stunning. I understand for people who for the first time enter into a Tesla, it's probably a completely new world as well. But if you've had 6 years of EV, you know where the other guys are, and you instantly understand where Tesla is. So we came back from that test. So we said, okay, we take it for May. And that worked out in the end. We could give back the Bolt despite COVID. We could pick up the Tesla. Everything was fine. That was the 3. 3 months later, we changed the Mercedes for the Y. 2 years later, we changed the 3 for a new 3. And the same year, we changed the Y for an X. So now we have a 3 and an X. And we absolutely love all cars. And we're already looking forward to 2 Cybertruck reservations. But the 2, I'm crazy. I am. I told you, I'm crazy old lady. So the point was that evening after the test drive, there was just no doubt in my mind that this was the next generation, and that everything else that was out in the market, which I had known, which I had driven, just doesn't compare. It was the same feeling I had when we gave up our Blackberries, our Nokias, our Motorolas, and suddenly had our Samsungs and Apples, right? Obviously, first Apple. And so the when you see it, what else can you do? Then suddenly nothing else compares on the stock market anymore. Why would you invest in bank stocks or anything else when you see in front of your eyes the potential there is. And then obviously we got very lucky because in March 2020 the stock was down. And so we very quickly recuperated. So it was always easy surfing. I actually, even with the crisis this year, we never got back to our purchase prices. I never lost money on Tesla. And so the whole, I mean, I lost money looking at it every day, believe me, and feeling the loss. But I never lost money compared to my initial investments and my purchases of other stock. So the feeling is, then and now 3 years later, there's still not one stock out there that compares to me. The two other stock I have is Four, which is the payment processor for a lot of hotels, right? And he's actually a good friend of Elon and was one of those that went up with the SpaceX shuttle it's now a year ago. So I have a theory that they may partner at one moment, and that's my little bet on that. So it is the same idea than Tesla. It's just and it worked out fine. I made public when I went in, which was around 38 or 40, and now it's around 77, I think. And the other one is a fund, just because that's my little old lady corner of me. I tell myself, okay, you're 56 now, you probably will be retiring in about 10 years. What if Tesla still has, waves and you don't want to sell them because of your retirement? Have a little bit in a fund that is more diversified. So I choose Gary Black's fund, which is called Future Fund, FFND. And I have my IRA, half of my IRA in there. The other half is also in Tesla. And it's really just the security cushion, so that I have the feeling, there is something if ever there is a huge problem in Tesla stock. At the moment, I would need it. I don't see Tesla ever going down over a longer period, but when you start being retired, you need some cash flow, and then obviously that would be my cash flow basis.
Understand. So that's future funds of Gary. I think all of our friends know that pretty well. Yeah. And the other one was just, it's not investment advice, guys, but just want to get the names out there. It's Four, correct?
That's it.
The payment process.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So these are the other two small positions that Alexandra has on. Okay. Thank you for sharing, Alexandra. Let's go back to your story a little bit, because wow, so that March 2020 was a great life-changing event for you.
It was. Right? And I mean, and it also coincides with COVID. So, we're in California, we were really locked down. And I mean, not like the Chinese, I understand, but for European standards and American standards, this was a big lockdown. And my joy was really my cars, I can tell you. So, because that was one thing you could do, right? You could drive around. That's actually the reason why we changed the Model 3 lease so quickly. It was a 3-year lease, but our son, the youngest, he just drove every day with a car, because the kid was going crazy, right? Being closed in with his parents, having to just study, not being able to see his friends, whatever. So his big joy was driving around. So the miles on that car accumulated quickly. And so it made COVID much more pleasant than it could have been.
I understand. Yeah. By the way, you have a great timing on your career investment timing, because you exited just before the financial crisis, 2008, left your job, and you're back investing in 2020, just before the next wave of QE. So great job, Alexandra.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So on the cars, you mentioned that you use all the other EVs before Tesla. So my question to you is, how come, like, you were already studying EVs, like you were looking around searching for EVs to buy?
Yes.
But how come you didn't get into a Tesla until March 2020, when Tesla has already been around for a while? And what's stopping you, like, before entering into Tesla world, like, to not?
I can explain that. It's less financial. Well, it is also financial, but it's not financial in the sense that I wasn't believing in the company. By the time in 2014, we were not ready. We just arrived in the United States. We needed a huge car. Most of the children were still living with us. So the Model S and the Model X were not big enough for us. We needed a huge Mercedes with 3 ranges and be sure that we had enough space there. So then it wasn't a a choice. It was, the big car was the Mercedes and the little car was the BMW electric car. In 2017, we really wanted to start with the 3. Why? Because obviously the Y wasn't out there, so the other choices would have been the S and the X. And what we needed more than an S and an X on top of the Mercedes we had was a city car, was a smaller car, right? To go and run errands, to do all that. So the Model 3 just fitted absolutely perfectly what we needed. And we were in the queue to get it. I remember we were, I think, probably reservation number 40,000 or something like that. But it was just going so slow. It was production hell then, and there was no chance. I called them a couple of times to get it then quickly. I could have had an S, but we're not poor, but having as the 2 family cars, because we're talking family cars, right? A big Mercedes and the Model S was just looking ridiculous. And so I don't regret, we sort of moved up the product ladder for Tesla, right? We had the 3. 3 months later, it was clear there was no choice other than selling the Mercedes for the Y, because then the Y was available. And then 2 years later, we just thought, fair enough, let's have fun. Let's get the X, right? We changed the 3 because of the mileage, and changed the Y to the X. And I mean, the X is my baby. You've no idea how many times when I'm tired in the evening and I think, I don't do it, I still take a little ride with my little car, just loving it. So that we really moved up the ladder, and I prefer that than buying straight away the luxury version and then, having never tried the others. The 3 is a great car. I always compare it to a Porsche. We had Porsche in Europe, and I feel, it's the same way, the way you get in, the way you're close to the road, right? There's none of the cars that are as close to the road and move as well as the 3. It's a perfect car, but I mean, I'm now a 56-year-old lady, and I don't want to have only a 3. I want to have a little bit more space, a little bit more comfort, and so that's the X for me now.
Thank you, Alexandra. Yeah.
Sure.
So, wow, like everyone that started, the first time, I'm sure we all remember our first Tesla experience, and that's why I asked you that maybe if there was a chance for you to get into an S and X, even though you didn't purchase it, then maybe you're investing into Tesla story would have started earlier, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For me, yeah.
That I mean, there's only one regret, is that I didn't have it earlier, right? But then you can't always regret the past; it's done. But for sure, if we would have been in a S or an X in 2017. First of all, I think we would have taken that instead of the 3,
despite of all the reasons.
Exactly. Once you're in there, you forget all reasons. And the second thing is, we would have invested much earlier, sure. But that's just it. But let me tell you that to your listeners, I still think we're very early in the journey for Tesla, and especially now at $200, right? Was one thing when we were equivalent to $400. But I still think we're very, very early in the journey of investing into Tesla.
Thank you, Alexandra. Let's dive into that, because that's a story I tell my audience a lot too. And now I'm lucky to have you here to share with them. But before we go into the story of Tesla, let's talk about diversification a little bit that you shared.
Sure.
So I know that you've seen the products, you've seen the company, and you believe in its long-term future. But what's the reason that really got you to heavily invested into Tesla, like in terms of percentage, 95%, compared to the diversification way that you were used to? Because there must be some barrier that you have to get through, right? So what's your thought during that process?
Sure. It was actually very instant. It was that feeling of being of sitting in a computer rather than sitting in a car. So, like I said, I knew electric cars. So it wasn't about, all electric cars are like that. And I'm very happy that I didn't have that feeling, because I knew electric cars. Moving from the Bolt, where sometimes you even had problems syncing your phone, because the map in the Bolt is linked to your map on your phone, right? I mean, it's completely ridiculous. The software level of other cars is just absolutely ridiculous. So sitting in that Tesla and everything works instantly, right? When you do a test drive and they sync it with your phone and they say, now go, nobody tells you, do you go for 5 minutes or do you go for 5 hours? It's just try it out and then come back. It was mind-boggling. It was completely different. And again, I can only state it after 6 years of having EVs, it wasn't as if I had, the torque, of course, the torque for Tesla is much better, but the torque we knew, we were used to driving electric cars. So it wasn't just the acceleration. It was much better, the acceleration. It's also much closer to the road, right? The way the Teslas sit on the road due to the battery pack is just giving you a feeling of security, of dominance of the road that is unequal with anybody. But then it's the software. I mean, the software, and then once I understood, because the guy in the Santa Barbara shop told us, yeah, this is the software, and one day these cars will drive by themselves. And I was, of course they will. I mean, this is. And like I said earlier, this is the same revolution that happened with the smartphone. This is the same.
Yep.
And I try to tell that to Gary all the time. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. So since December last year, I'm on the advisory board of Gary's company. So we sometimes just call each other up and share ideas. And he's not convinced that Tesla can go to 20 million cars, and he thinks 10 models of Teslas are not enough, that you need much more models, and the car market is so segmented and everybody wants their little niche and whatever. And I tried to tell him, he has a why as well, but I tried to tell him, it doesn't matter anymore. People will want a car for the software, maybe even self-driving, and whether it's a little bit longer, a little bit higher, a little bit shorter, whatever, as long as it fits their utilitarian need, right? Number of kids they have to put in there, or if they have to carry every day heavy things or whatever, that's one thing. But they will be much less picky, as they are currently in a very mature OEM market, where this is so old that everybody is playing its little niche. With electric cars, that's not going to be the case. As long as they find the utility, it's much more about the safety, the autonomy, the software, the over-the-air updates, and the comfort in the car, right? What you want to do because you want to be entertained while you're not driving, all that is much more important. And so by putting my butt into the car and driving around the way, it just became absolutely evident. And then you can't unsee it. It's one of those things, once you have understood, and then you do a little bit of research, and you're, of course, and this and this, and that ticks the box, and that ticks the box, and then you tell yourself, okay, you can't do that, Alexandra. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. And then the thing is, okay, so what would I diversify against it? What other stock is there out there? So I looked at my then basket, which was lying around, more or less unattended, because it was just a diversified portfolio that we had once put together, and that was that. You look stock by stock through it, and you say, okay, do these guys have a 5 or 10 year outlook that's comparable? No, out. Well, at the end, there was one man standing, and that was Tesla.
Thank you, Alexandra. So for my part, let me share with you. So I started investing 10 years ago, much later than you have, but then I had a bit of small Tesla position all along, but it's not until around 2020 as well that I started increasing Tesla position until now that I have about more than 90% of my portfolio in Tesla as well. But for me, it's more like every time I try to increase into Tesla position, I had the same feeling as you did. We look at other stocks, I'm like, why are we diversifying? Looking at the outlooks of the other stocks. Tesla definitely has much more upside or potential. But then, the back of my mind, thinking, listening to all the investor who's been telling me to diversify all along, I'm like, okay, so what is a good percentage? I mean, 50 is already a lot, right? So once I increase from 10 to 20 to 50, I'm like, okay, that's already a lot. But as time goes on, I have the exactly same thought as you, to increase it to 90%. But I'm just wondering for yourself, how do you get through that barrier in such a short period of time? So you jumped right in from
I did and it was one of those intuitions, and you'll see that comes with age. You don't have them often in your life, but when you have those intuitions, this is it. And this is it. And it really broke away all my old rules. And then obviously and that's the reason why I got so involved with Twitter, right? Because then I became obsessed about it, thinking, okay, it's all good. You have this intuition and you do all that. So the first thing that reassured me is that Tesla is actually a very diversified company. It is not as if you are just investing in a car company, of course, it's not only a car company, it's an EV company, but then you also have all the vertical integration that's into Tesla. You also have all the other activities, right? You have the supercharger network, which is absolutely fabulous. You have obviously now all these developments around the bot. So there are many other things coming, solar, energy, everything, and all these, insurance, and all these parts will play a much bigger role in the months and years to come. So when you look at it, you're investing actually a little bit into an energy company, a little bit into a supercharger company, a little bit into a AI company, a little bit. So with every Tesla share comes so much more. So you don't need another Geico insurance stock. You have insurance. You don't need whatever Electrify America stock for supercharging. You have that. So you have a lot of diversification already, and you actually have the best diversification already. And that's another thing I sometimes share with Gary, because his fund has, I think, 35 stock, right? And he has stuff in there that I wouldn't look at because it's not interesting for me, like Sheepotle or whatever. But I say to him, how can you find stock that is equivalent? Because he does what I did in the good old days, right? Diversify and do it. And he said, okay, so I've got Google for about the same weight than Tesla. I said, do you really think Google has the same future than Tesla? I don't, right? And that's where we are.
Understand. That's a great point. That Tesla is a very diversified company, and I think a lot of people may have missed that, because so in your feeling, Alexandra, although the big part of your portfolio is in Tesla, but you feel like you're not really investing in a car company, whereas you have all the things you mentioned: insurance, software, autonomy, AI, and everything. Correct? So may I go to my next question then, because you mentioned a lot about software already, about Tesla. That's something that got you really into it. But now, like, looking forward, what are the three biggest reason or the biggest business in Tesla that you're looking forward to the most, or you're most excited about?
Clearly FSD. I'm not sure it will go all the way to Robotaxi, because that's just such a life changer for many people that it may take time to adopt. But in the immediate FSD, I think the FSD take rate is going to be much higher than it is now, and will bring lots of good recurring revenue, because this is revenue that has nearly no cost, right? So that's a very good revenue stream. I mean, the cars, of course, because I do believe they will be by 2030 at 20 million cars. So the cars themselves is going to be a good business model, including the Cybertruck, which is the most exciting thing I'm looking for, and the groundbreaking in Mexico. If they really manage to do to set up that company in 9 months, as they're trying to do, that's going to be a major step. So FSD and the cars is certainly one group. Then the second group is certainly energy. I do believe that their mega packs and the whole ecosystem, solar mega packs, power walls, and everything are going to go very, very far. And Elon told us that in the end have higher revenues than the cars, right? Just because at one mega pack is $2 million, and they're talking about an extra large mega pack, so that may be $4 million. So those amounts and the demand for these seems just endless, and they seem to be in the best position to develop this market as well. They won't be by themselves. There are other people making mega packs, but Tesla will have a big chunk of that market. And then, of course, the bot. I mean, the bot is going to be maybe in 5 years. I actually think it's going to come earlier, but I don't want to set up expectations. But the bot is going to replace labor for everything that is difficult to do or boring to do, where humans are not at their best use. And there is lots about it. If you think about it, this can be in households. This can be, of course, in factories. This can be in hospitals. This can be in so many positions. And with it comes a lot of discussion, right? What do we do with the labor market? What do we do with all this workforce that is then no longer needed? But I do believe it will bring much more comfort to people and will make life much more efficient, will make countries that adopt the bot much richer, because a bot can work 24 hours a day, or if he has to charge maybe 20 hours a day. But there's going to be a huge gain in efficiency and precision. And I do believe Tesla will be one of the 5 largest actors in the bot scene.
Wow, Kate. Thank you, Alexandra. I've shared the reasons with the fans there in the comments.
Sure.
Let me dig into each one. First of all, the FSD that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm wondering why you mentioned that although you believe in FSD, but you don't believe that robotaxi will come into fruition anytime soon.
Well, those are 2 different things. FSD, I mean, that the car is really driving, but may still have driver supervision, right? And I do believe, I mean, I don't know for all countries, but at least in America, people are ready to do that now, and to have their car drive by themselves with slight oversight. I mean, much more relaxed driving, and the adoption rate for those on a subscription basis. The subscription basis being $200 a month, or I don't know, $5 a day if you just want it for a single day, or whatever it comes up to, or by mileage, will be, in my view, quickly adopted. Once we are where we want to be, 11.3.3 seems to be very good. I just watched this morning my first video on 11.3.4, which is doing absolutely amazing things. So I do believe we really get to the point where we will see adoption now for a larger, not only the 400,000 that are currently using it, but to go to 1 million or even more, and that the large bulk of the new adopters will be on a subscription basis, so straight away to the revenue stream. Excuse me. And then on why is it not becoming a robotaxi? Well, there is a whole issue about robotaxi, which is actually liability. So for Tesla to be able to claim it as a robotaxi, it's Tesla who is taking over the liability, meaning it's not the owner insuring the car anymore. It's
Correct.
Tesla having a cover insurance for all the cars, right? And I just think that is going to take time. Not certain it will take time. I'm just maybe being prudent, but I have the feeling that step change, I mean, let's face it, it's not level 2 now, right? It's level 2 because Tesla is playing smart. By keeping it on level 2, the responsibility is with the driver. For it to be a robotaxi, we have to go to level 5. Level 5 means the driver can sit in the back seat, sleep, the robotaxi brings you may not even have a steering wheel anymore. So that's where Elon wants to bring us, no doubt about it. But I just wonder when Tesla is ready to take that liability on it. And I don't want to bet on that. That's not part of my main scenario. FSD is, but the robotaxi is not. Let me just drink a little bit because I have the feeling.
Please go ahead.
I'm gonna dry out.
Please go ahead. Okay, that's very interesting. So you in your model that you're planning out, you're not really counting that big robotaxi revenue that everyone is,
Exactly.
Some people are excited about. Okay.
I mean, if it comes, it's my sort of super extra best scenario, right? But it's not none of those that I expect in the next 5 years.
Okay. Thank you, Alexandra. Now, move on to the next one. You mentioned 20 million cars. You seem confident. You had an argument with Gary on that, on why you believe 20 million car will come. So we have a fan asking now, Javis asking, what about rival from China? You don't think what's your thought?
They will come. They will come, and they have obviously a strength in that the Chinese government is helping them to survive, even if they're not profitable, so they can fight with arms that nobody else is fighting with. But I do believe in 2030. So that's my argument I have with Gary. So I share that with you with pleasure. We all think EV adoption will be somewhere between 60 and 80%. The annual new car market is 100 million. Let's just say 80 million of these would be EVs, right? We can do the same with 60 million, but let's just do it for the moment for 80 million. So Gary thinks 10 million out of the 80 are going to be Teslas. I think 20 million out of these will be. What's my argument? First, who will do the other 60 or 70 million? who will do them, right? There are not a lot of people out there that are currently doing a compelling product. Yes, the Chinese are very well placed. And I do believe by then Ford and GM and whatever will have some good products. But the thing is, there's, in my view, none, worldwide none, that can produce 10, 20, 30, 40 million cars sufficiently profitable. You know, it's one thing doing an Android phone and making little margin on it, because that's exactly what happens with Android phones, right? It's another one building cars in the millions and making very little margin on it. At one moment, you have to make money out of it. Fair enough, take away the Chinese, they can maybe do it without. But all the others, be it Volkswagen, be it GM, be it Ford, whoever, they have at one point to make money on their cars and have a compelling product that consumers want to buy. And I just don't see it. I think the only ones that will be able to do that in big number, I'm not saying Tesla is going to have 100% or even 50% of the market, but I firmly believe they will have either 20 million, around 20 million of a market that will be between 60 and 80 million. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Alexandra, to share your thoughts. That it's not that you're not worried about the competition. There will be, but the market share itself for Tesla to be 20 out of 80, that's already,
exactly.
doable in your opinion.
And with the highest profitability, there's no doubt, because if you've watched Investor Day in detail, it's all about the cost. All of those presenters, which actually were so impressive, right? I mean, it was really the right moment to present the deep bench that Tesla has. And I was very impressed with these people. And I have to say, it is incredible how everything they do is to optimize cost, right? And what they showed us in March, I can tell you already in May or in June will be even better, right? They are constantly innovating and constantly improving their processes and their products. So the way the cars are going to be built will be much more cost efficient. They will be offered to clients at a much lower price point. And then the client does what? The consumer does what? If you have a 25,000 Tesla that has all the compelling features and you have a 25,000 something else that doesn't have them, what do you buy, right? So it's much more for me the question, will they be able to produce? And I do believe they will be able to produce. Then the question whether somebody else can bring a compelling product. Yes, there will be some low-cost, cute EVs that are maybe cute to the eye. They won't have the same features. And you have sometimes consumers that don't need all these huge features, right? I'm sure there are some old style OEM clients, when they will finally move over to EVs, they don't have the same needs than we have now, just because we're getting so spoiled by Tesla, right? More you get spoiled, that's actually another point. There is, in my view, no going back. I think Tesla has the highest retention percentage in the whole market. Just Tesla buyers, what do they do when they change the car? They buy a Tesla again, right? Yes. So I'm in no way worried about the number of cars to be sold in the next 5, 10, 15 years. I see nobody else on the horizon. Nobody, when that's completely stopped. But remember, about a year ago, we were still believing this crazy story that Apple was working on a car, and any day now we would have this good Apple car coming up. Did anything come up? No. It's no easy feat to build a car. It's no easy feat to build an electric car. And it's certainly no easy feat to build a compelling competitor to Tesla.
Thank you, Alexandra. Wanted to get your more thoughts on that, on the Apple car. So currently you don't believe that they'll be able to come up with one anytime soon for Apple?
I mean, they lost a whole bench of directors a couple of weeks ago again. I mean, people are just leaving there in droves. Do you think that multiple directors would leave the Apple car development if everything was going on schedule and they were soon coming out with something? At one moment, I was thinking maybe their best bet would have been to partner with Lucid or somebody like that, or Rivian, or I don't know what, just, to get something out there. But, we all know good enough Elon now, with his good and his bad side. But the one thing you got to give him, for those that criticize him, I mean, I'm a fangirl, but for those that criticize him, he went through production hell. Nobody out there, no Tim Cook, no, I don't know who, Maribara, whoever, is going to sleep on the factory floor to get these cars out, to make them better, to talk to Sandy Munro, to get new ideas, to innovate. If you look at those videos from Joe Justice, I highly recommend watching him. He's a very interesting guy. The way Tesla is set up to constantly innovate on every little step in the production process, nobody does this. This is industry breaking, and he doesn't care about industry. He just wants to make it better based on fundamentals, first principles all the time.
Set up to constantly innovate. Thank you, Alexandra. We wanted to dive in more into Tesla stocks and your thoughts a bit more. But once you mentioned that, I wanted to ask this question first. So you mentioned you're a fangirl of Elon. We heard a great story about how you get into Tesla the first time and it become your main investing portfolio. We wanted to hear a story about how you become Elon fangirl. Was that before investing into Tesla or how did that happen?
No, actually not. I heard of Elon before. I mean, obviously everybody does, but I was busy in my job and with my children and all that. So I wasn't, hooked on him at all. My stock purchase was really based on the car experience. And then I got into, I don't know whether people can understand that. So in March, I went all in with my money. Since then, whenever I have money, I put more in. And then suddenly it hits you that maybe you were a bit crazy, right? And then I thought, okay, so what can I do now? So my first action was to monitor the ETFs that have large Tesla positions. Why? Typical reflex from a former fund manager. As a fund manager, you have everyday time to research and you have a lot of money allocated to get research from your brokers, sell-side analysts, whatever. So I thought, okay, the ARKs of this world, the Gary Blacks of this world, whatever, they spend their days on that. I don't have the time to do that. So I monitor what they do because ETFs have to publish every day. ETFs publish, thank you, Ethan, publish every day their holdings. So I told myself, watch every morning what they did last night. And if you see they suddenly sell, that's going to be my alarm clock, right? So I just wanted to be sure that I had something that was not just the noise from newspapers or the internet, that was more solid. And so I started by following the ARK funds and then by Gary's fund and Ross Gerber's fund. And so that was that. So that gave me the certain comfort feeling to my craziness, right? And so obviously by that time, I got more into Tesla. I was reading about their business and all that. Then obviously you can't ignore Elon. Set up my Twitter account, had an old Twitter account that I changed the name and started tweeting a little bit, but very little. I think I started off with 20 followers, right? And that was beginning of 2021 still. And then I did my financial tables. I don't know whether you've seen those. The tables in orange and in green, where I look at the 30 largest mega caps and their financials, their creditworthiness, so my old Moody's school, and at the 10 largest rated car makers. And so I published the first one, and then Elon responded to that. And I was like, I was falling from my bed. I remember I was reading that on a Sunday morning, it was, and I couldn't believe that Elon Musk was responding to me, like, who am I in this whole story? And wow. and that's where exactly, and that's where I started interacting with him a little bit more. I mean, not that I interact a lot with him, but then where I really started following him, and then I started publishing my Substacks, and my tables became quarterly tables. And we squeezed the investment grade out of S&P and then lately out of Moody's. And so that whole story, I became sort of a persona. I have now about 50,000 followers. Sometimes I just pinch myself and tell myself, what did these people want from me, right? I'm enjoying it. I'm making a lot of fun there, but it is absolutely crazy to have so many people following me. And so the obviously Elon was part of it. And these were turbulent times I'm sure the early days were turbulent times with Elon as well. But obviously the Twitter acquisition and then his sometimes political statements and whatever brought a lot of other upset. But it never, honestly, not 1 second put in question my Tesla thesis, investment. It was just all there.
Thank you, Alexandra. I'm sharing your table, your famous table, but I don't have a clear picture I captured from Darren's live video. I'm not as
Sure.
prepared as
Yeah.
Darren, but this is the one that went viral as you mentioned, and Elon's reply to the tweet.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Alexandra, from standing up for our Tesla community and trying to show the world of why it is unfair for Tesla to be getting this kind of rating, and then put pressure on the agency rating for this. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask your thought on Elon a little bit more on that. So you mentioned that there hasn't been a single moment where you doubt Elon, despite all his critics out there. Which me too, myself, I never doubted Elon, but I'm wondering why. Like, do you understand? Since like we don't doubt Elon, but why do people there's so many critics of his movement, whereas for us we see it clearly.
Yeah. I have some theories, and I'm quite vocal about
I want to
those.
hear your thought on that.
So first of all, Elon was an outspoken first of all, America is very partisan. I come from Europe. When I arrived here, I couldn't believe it. It's black or white. It's incredible how tribal it all is. If you're for one point of one party, you have to be for all points for one party, and you have to be against the other ones. It's completely tribal. I've never seen anything like it. So, and I guess we won't change that. So the Elon was always an outspoken Democrat, which goes very well with his mission for Tesla, sustainability, and all that. But he felt very uneasy about the politics, about the outreach, about how social media is used. And bought Twitter for that, because he was really worried about free speech, and that everything was working for one side of the balance and not for the other side of the balance. And so he bought Twitter, and he made public a lot of their shenanigans. So that was one point. And then he obviously also discussed more or less openly politics with the Republican side of the sphere, sometimes even with people that went beyond typical Republicans. And then that spurred lots of Democrats' hate, and especially of those Democrats that are further out on the spectrum. So by getting into politics in America, you can only lose. And I'm sure he knows that. But it was bigger than that. It was bigger than him thinking, fair enough, I will lose support, or I will lose people that, admired me before. I don't think he cares about that. He just, always to remember he's on the spectrum, and he felt there was a big injustice that had to be cleared, that had to be brought to the attention of everybody. And he did, and he did create lots of criticism. He's actually he's a threat. He's a threat to the newspapers. He's a threat to most TV stations. The way he does business is completely unusual. I don't know whether you've seen that now, that if journalists, when a journalist writes an article, he always has to contact the company they write about for comments. So when journalists write now to Twitter, to the press@twitter.com email address, they get an automatic response with a poop emoji, right? That's the automatic response.
Yes.
So when the New York Times writes, they get a poop emoji. I mean, who does that? And then obviously that brings you, especially on the other side of the political field, that doesn't bring you friends, right? I mean, we all laugh about that. I think it's hilarious he does that, but it is certainly not to the taste of a lot of the Democrat side of America, and there is, especially in the media, there is a lot of those.
Understand, Alexandra. This is my next question is important one. So when people who's not investing in Tesla, or people who has critics of Elon looking into Tesla stock, and they see people like us who's standing up for Elon, so no matter what he says, we're standing up for him, and that's the reason why they are not investing into Tesla. So my question to you is, like, they also see Tesla as a hype stock because people like us defending Elon. So what's your thought on that, or any message to them, people who's not investing into Tesla, or any funds who's not investing into Tesla because Elon is still the CEO?
I think they have to understand that Tesla is not only Elon, and thank heavens we still have Elon, but it's not Elon's political or vocal involvement. I mean, it's not only his political, by the way, it's also just the way he is on Twitter. He is on Twitter like we all are, right? He speaks like us. He answers. He likes. He just interacts like anybody else. And who else does that? So the thing I tell people who don't like Tesla or who are prudent about Tesla is try the car. Once you have the car, look, watch Investor Day. See that this company is not just Elon. It is he was able to build a team like none else, right? These 16 people that spoke up there. If you're not impressed after that, well, then stay in your Geico and Bank of America stock, because it's not a stock for everybody. I can completely understand, and I have a lot of interaction daily with people on Twitter who are like, I'm so disappointed in Elon. The stock would have never gone to 102 if Elon would have not behaved the way he did. He's selling stock, so that is weighing on the stock. Yes. I hear all that, and some of that is very true. Invest, please, only in Tesla if you're in it for the long term. This is not a stock for a 6 or 12 months horizon. This is a stock where you buy it and you don't worry for a couple of years, because the volatility is still very high. The 5-year beta is I think 2.0, the 2-year is 1.6, so it is getting smaller. I do believe it will get much smaller because institutionals are now purchasing the stock, so that will bring a solid block of non-traded stock, but it's been one of the most traded stock these last 12 months, right? We had daily volume of up to 200 million stock. This is a crazy volume. So this is stock that still gets shortened. This is a stock where there's lots of option activity. So for somebody who wants to invest in Tesla, please don't do it for the short term. It will drive you crazy. You may, that's gambling. You may sometimes win and sometimes lose. That's one thing. But if you do it for 3, 5, 10-year horizon, there is nothing comparable out there that I've seen.
Thank you, Alexandra. And for yourself personally, do you have any strategy to manage the volatility in Tesla stock, as you mentioned, or just long-term?
Yeah, I mean, so 95% are in Tesla. And the one that is in my 401k and the IRA, I don't touch. I just don't touch. In my brokerage account, I do sometimes options, but I only do actually the purchase of calls. And there I look obviously at volatility and try to not buy at 35, but at 20, right? So those are call options. I lost some money on those last year. Obviously, I had some in the third and fourth quarter, so those were not good. I still have some now for April, and then have longer ones. I have some leaps. So yes, I do. I try to manage volatility with these options, but it's an insignificant number of. It's just a little bit of salt in my gambling soul is back on.
I see. So at the end, those are just small portions. So at the end, it's just more like long-term holding. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, and then live through the volatility, as you mentioned. You gotta understand the stocks, understand why it is volatile because of the short position and all, and then just get through it. Correct?
It is exactly.
All right. We have a few minutes left. I want to get your thoughts on the more recent update story of Tesla. So maybe first question is, what's your thought on the upcoming Q1, because that's a controversial one. I'm hearing a lot of people who's kind of afraid that the Q1 earning might not be great. So what's your thought on that? Can we see a surprise?
Sure. So production delivery numbers will be tomorrow. My delivery number is quite high at 437.5. I think Europe is going to surprise on the upside. I think in the United States, Model Y is going to surprise on the upside. And I do actually have some hope for Model 3 as well, because, Model 3 still has the full tax credit up to yesterday. So I hope that is good. And China was much better than expected. So my number is 437.5. My production number is 460. Now the production number is obviously much more difficult to calculate. It could be that they have more inventory than I think, right? So I had this discussion actually yesterday with Gary as well for quite some time, because at end of Q4 they had a 13-day inventory stock. I think that's nothing. 13 days is 2 weeks, right? Or even if you don't count the weekends, it's 2.5 weeks. He goes, oh my God, it shouldn't go up to 17 or 18. So what the heck if it goes to 17 or 18? You know, the normal car manufacturers have inventories between 3 and 6 months, right? So we're not at all comparable. But no, it's not 13 weeks inventory, it's 13 days inventory. And so just want to make sure that that's correctly understood. And then the next big event is going to be, I think, on the 26th. We don't have the date yet, but just by experience, the earnings call. And the earnings call is very important this time. You're completely right. Because the fact that they lowered prices by 6 to 20%, right, of the different car models brings, of course, less revenue, which, well, we may see tomorrow brought in bigger numbers, so that the revenue number may actually not be that impacted. We'll see that tomorrow. But the margin is obviously going to shrink. And so the big discussion is, some people expect the margin coming down to 18%. Some people think it's still up there at 23%. I'm still undecided. I've tried to model this in different ways, and I'm not comfortable giving a number yet. I maybe tomorrow, once we know the delivery numbers and the production numbers. But that's the big unknown, right? How much margin did this price decrease eat up? Have they already scaled their cost reduction to a point that it's actually very well absorbed? And so you're right. It's one of the more unknown earnings calls, right? We can be surprised tomorrow on the upside of the number, yet be disappointed in 3 weeks on the earnings itself. So earnings per share in the market is around 89 cents now. Like I said, I'm not convinced yet on my margins. I hope for $1, which would be a large beat. Usually in earnings per share, Tesla always beats the analysts. The analysts are always much more negative. So but we'll see. I do believe all this is very short term. Q1, if there is a problem, may not even be a problem. Maybe still Q2, but that's it. I think their cost reduction in production will be going through, because at the same time, lithium and many other raw materials have come down so significantly, and we know that these prices filter through to the financials in about a 6 months lag. So all this will be already perceivable in Q2 and for sure in Q3. So I'm not worried at all for the total year. We may have a little bit of a bump in the road in 3 weeks, and then we'll see again in Q2.
Okay, so it'll be an important one, like Alexandra mentioned, and I put up your Twitter handle here for your Thai fans to follow. You know, Alexandra, so you can get thoughts, Alexandra, on those number. Yeah, later on over there. So I think maybe, yeah, it's definitely an important one. Q1. I'm actually nervous to see, you know, because if the margin, like you said, is not passed through enough, or if it's somehow much lower than we all thought, then it could change a little bit of the thesis. So we might have to review it there again, but definitely not. I'm not. We'll have to see it first, because you mentioned that Tesla always surprises on the margin side a lot in the past. So it leaves me with the last question then, Alexandra. We've seen Tesla surprise us a lot in the past in the margins. Like they do improve somehow internally themselves, how to manage costs and everything better than we thought. Will this trend continues for you, in your opinion, that they will always drive to, you know?
Oh, sure. I mean, they do. If you go through those slides from Investor Day, remember one of them is very impressive of how they up to now assembled cars, right? And everybody was working on the same car. So you had a limited number of people because everybody was doing something on the car. Now they're actually preparing different stages in different corners, right? And then only bringing it together. That allows more people working on the different stages, and hence winning both time and efficiency. So, I mean, they are constantly proving that there is improvements to be made, and they do it. They go the way to do it the way and the bot is going to be a huge improvement in this whole efficiency curve. So even on a horizon of 6 to 9 months, I'm not worried. It could be a bump here. These cost cuts were clearly necessary. I think it was the right decision to do. to maintain market share or even build out market share. I actually think they build out market share in all markets, and from there on, we just have to now get the costs down, get the prices down.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. I hope so. I'm looking forward for the good number. I'm not sure this year one's your fan, Serge, but he's asking questions.
Serge, I love him.
Yeah.
He's from Canada. So Serge,
Okay, hi,
I don't
Serge.
know what that cyber world was about. That was really interesting. I have no idea what this is about. No,
Okay,
don't
so I
know.
just wanted to bring
Maybe
up
a new
Serge's question,
supercharger, yeah.
Okay, thank you for your time today. It's an honor to be interviewing you, Alexandra. Any last thoughts you want,
Thank
or
you,
anything
Chris.
you want to leave to the Thai fans that's waiting for you to visit somehow, because you never visited Thailand before? I think you're also
Exactly.
missing
I wish
out.
I'd come.
Apart from Tesla that you never tried before 2020, you're missing also something.
Okay,
a
well,
good vacation in Thailand. Yeah.
I should do that, and I'll reach out. It'd be an honor to meet you there.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Alexandra, and everyone. Thank you for watching our show today. It's great to have Alexandra on, and hopefully we can do this sometime in the future again, Alexandra. Yeah.
Sure, loved it. Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for reaching out.
Thank you, everyone. Follow Alexandra here, her Twitter channel, and we'll put in the description. Thank you again,
Perfect.
everyone, and yeah, see you next time.
See you soon.